Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Lions Grid. It's a special Wednesday edition here, Jeffrey, as we are talking about the event, the occurrence, the end of another Lions football season, Jeffrey.
When preparing for this episode, it was painful because pretty much I did watch the other playoff games, but I did not really look at any social media. I was too depressed afterwards. And when I was looking up all what happened now, it brought back those painful memories of Sunday.
Well, so welcoming to the show here, getting an early start. Hello, gentlemen. Guess who was right? You were wrong. I believe if we roll the tape back, you picked the Lions to win. You just sabotaged us. And because you have nothing to cheer for. Ooh, that's pretty rough. Pretty rough.
It is, yeah, because I'm rooting for a Bills Commanders Super Bowl at this point, but if it's Chiefs and Eagles, that would be I don't think anybody wants that.
That would be worst case.
Anybody wants that.
So. Yeah, it's definitely took, there's the polar vortex going on currently that I know is impacting many of us across the country. So it feels like with the Lions being knocked out, it has sucked the warmth out of the world here, Jeffrey, and all we're left with is a frozen barren tundra, as we are now without Lions football for the rest of the early part of the year until we kick off again next season. But Jeffrey, I think this loss in particular, obviously, it was a heartbreaking way to end the season. To be fair, for 31 teams, it does end this way. But I think what makes this loss particularly hard is the fact that it does kind of signal the end of an era for the Detroit Lions, right? Like, it's official. We've lost Ben Johnson. He's going to go be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. Aaron Glenn is moving on and being the head coach of the New York Jets. Terrell Williams, our defensive line coach, he's now moving on to be the defensive coordinator for the Patriots. And then it's unclear at this time, but Hank Farley, our offensive line coach, he's one of the finalists for the Seahawks offensive coordinator position. And there have been some rumors linking him to going over to Chicago to join Ben Johnson. So there's a lot of a brain drain going on here for the Lions organization. And so, we know that it is difficult to sort of repeat, and we didn't quite reach as high as we did last season or as far. We made it to the NFC Championship game, of course, last year against the Niners. But it was difficult to get to this point, Jeffrey. And now, one of the things we had going for us was that consistency, that cohesive nature of having our two main coordinators and the head coach there for all these seasons. And now we're kind of moving on here, Jeffrey. It's going to be interesting to see. We've talked about how it's been impressive how the Lions have moved on from being one of those paper bag over your head type franchises, one of those clown show organizations, and they have really started. They've turned. They've turned the page on that. Now is we're going to really see how that goes.
Because I think Brad Holmes and kind of the nucleus of that, Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, they came in. They've been hitting on the draft pick side of things, so right, that has been a positive. But this is really the first time that they have had to fill major holes like this. I mean, as far as like the last, I guess, big shakeup was when Dan Campbell fired Anthony Lynn amidst a season a few years ago, and that's kind of I feel like the last kind of rockiness when it came to like coordinators kind of thing for us, because like you said, we had so much continuity. But yeah, it'll be a tough task, but I do trust in Brad Holmes. I mean, he has that that connection to Les Snead over in the Rams, right? They have also are an organization that deals with quite a bit of brain drain, right? Them, the 49ers, right? They're all their coordinators seem to get top interviews at least every year, right? And they've had to kind of reload, and they've been a good job. But I think with the Rams and Brad Holmes coming from that organization, I think it's an arrow up on that, and I think we can be safe to say that at least it'll be the best person for the job at this point in time.
Yeah, and I think that's what adds to the heartbreak is the uncertainty, right? Because we haven't done it yet. I certainly have faith in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, but to your point, the organizations that are sort of at least over the last few years constantly in the playoffs, Rams, Ravens, 49ers.
The Rams do rebuilds in the middle of the year during
a lot of those coaching staffs that have highly coveted coordinators, they retool and they do it quickly. They do a good job selecting the new people to come in, and so we haven't done it yet as the Lions, but certainly given the success that we have had building the culture when it comes to the players and the moves from a roster standpoint, I certainly think Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell have room to let's see what they can cook up before we get too judgmental there. But it is going to be, I mean, it is a big loss. And it all started with this loss here to Washington, Jeffrey. So let's go ahead and jump in here and talk a little bit about the game, Jeffrey. And I know at least looking around and then, Reddit and some of the other fan communities for the Lions, I think a lot of people, there has been a lot of anger, a lot of blame being thrown around, and a lot of that falling on Jared Goff's shoulders. It's funny how we go from chanting his name at games that aren't even for for football, and to now it's we're never going to win a Super Bowl with this guy. He's garbage. Get rid of him now.
I think it's all the, especially with social media. I mean, a lot of times it's just a bunch of idiots yelling at each other anyway. But it's very soon after, right? I think people's emotions are pretty high. We've been the area has been starving for us going, one of our teams being relevant again, kind of thing. And with Detroit kind of being on the cusp and then losing like this, I think a lot of people are kind of up in arms. And right, I mean, the week after is always like hot take city when it comes to certain outcomes in sports, especially in the NFL, right? Like people's seasons are defined on how many Super Bowls they have versus they not. But is that really true? No, probably not. But it's that's not the vibe, right? But as far as Goff's play, I mean, as far as I kind of my big thoughts on it, and he didn't play well. He had a bad game, and I think he does deserve some of the blame.
Absolutely, I think and I think with the takes that hopefully we'll be providing here, I don't like to number one, I don't like to tell other fans like you should feel X about why. I don't like to try and say, well, you're just being silly. You need to feel this way about it. So, but I will just offer up sort of my perspective on it, and I definitely agree with you. Goff's play. I think part of it was he could sort of feel that the defense was struggling, so he started to press. He felt he needed to make a play, and then that's in particular when that pick six happened, where he also took that hit where there was no flag called on the return there. That felt really like a big momentum switch in the game. Like we were already trailing at that point, but when that happened, it really felt like at that point we were fighting uphill again, or swimming up current, however whatever turn of phrase you want to use there. It was it felt like at that point we had made too many mistakes to come back on, and then when we started to come back, we made even more mistakes, Jeffrey.
A lot of uncharacteristic play, actually, like the 12 men on the field. Like we, as far as kind of situational football, have been really good, especially the past couple of years, right? But so we don't see these kinds of penalties very often, and in the biggest stage and at the worst time, right? For us to kind of be uncharacteristic, you do it, right? That, and I think you're right. I think Goff was pressing a little bit, and he was getting a little too greedy here. I mean, I think it was just not good. I felt he was rattled too. Like a lot of some of the, especially some of the pick in the end zone in particular. Like you don't throw that ball. Like I don't know. It's just very uncharacteristic. And also, I don't know if you have any points about the defense. I wasn't a fan of the way Aaron Glenn called the game, especially after like the second half started.
Yeah, and I wonder too how, and with that, I mean, obviously injuries have been a big part of the defense in general, and of course, to start this game, we lost Amik Robertson, who had been,
that was
a big part of shutting down Justin Jefferson when we last played against the Vikings. So, I agree with you. Like, I wasn't a huge fan of what was going on from the defense perspective, but as we've been talking about throughout the season, Jeffrey, I wonder if that was just a sort of symptom of the fact that we had reached at that point, the Jenga tower had spilled all over. Like we've already, Carlton Davis is gone, Amik Robertson's gone. We have injuries piling up across the board on that defense, and I wonder if that was just at this point, Aaron Glenn just didn't know the best way to proceed with what he had left.
Yeah,
with
and
the team.
I agree. I think that's definitely a major factor, right? You can't when you have that many people, star players, like you can feel the whole defense out in the NFL with all the people we got out, right? Like it's rough. But I guess what I didn't specifically like was that when we played Minnesota, the game plan was to pressure the hell out of Sam Darnold, right? Be in his face, generate pressure all the time, be up in his face at a high blitz rate. And Jaden Daniels played us perfectly. Like we could not stop him from the first play onwards. So for me, like sending all that pressure, your quarterback, like if the quarterback is then figuring it out, he's very good at this. Like, why aren't we spying more? Why aren't we putting more? Like, I would have liked to have seen us gone a little bit more conservative and to the point, because we don't have the men on there. We're on to like our 8th string people. Like I think like we would have better been served to be more of a bend not break, kind of like last year, kind of going into that. But besides the point, definitely with the injuries and that, for sure.
Yeah, I think the most painful example, at least for me, of that was when they blitzed Brian Branch and they had that RPO called, and he tossed it over there on the sideline to Terry McLaurin, and he had that long touchdown run just because they had the 3 receivers over there and there were only the 2 defenders once they blitzed Brian Branch, and it was just it looked just too easy, man, just too easy. And he was doing a lot of the criticism has been focused on the Lions losing this game, and at least locally from what I've been seeing from Lions fans, but I don't think enough credit is being given to the Commanders for winning this game. They came out here and absolutely the Lions made a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes. They had the 5 turnovers. You already mentioned the 12 man on the field penalty. But in addition to like those mistakes by the Lions, like the Commanders came out and executed almost flawlessly. They had the 1 punt, but outside of that, they gave us all we could handle and more, Jeffrey.
From the first drive, first possession, they punched us in the mouth and kind of kept going. So you're absolutely right. Jaden Daniels is a stud out there. I mean, he's a problem. It's incredible. This season was incredible.
Yeah, he is a problem, and he's probably going to be a problem for quite some time. And as my dad says here, Daniels was playing phenomenal. He is the shit, and he was. I mean, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens here against Philly when they move on to take on them. Now, weather may be more of a factor there, but it's certainly interesting, Jeffrey. Certainly interesting.
Yeah, I'm definitely rooting for the Commanders. I'd want them to win it all for sure. I'm hoping for a Commanders-Bills Super Bowl. That'd be my kind of ultimate. But like I said at the top of the show, Eagles-Chiefs, just doesn't excite me.
I am now officially adding, though, the Commanders to my list of teams I want no part of in the playoffs. So, like between the 1991 game and now this game.
I was shitting on the historical relevance there.
Because we don't want any part of the Commanders. Do not want them. Do not want to see them. No. Keep them away from us. Let other teams beat them. Mark Lewis here saying maybe the coaching change will breathe a breath of fresh air into the team, and certainly, maybe some new perspectives. Although I think primarily, I think they're looking to promote internally, which does make a bit of sense for the Lions. I think one of the things we've seen with the rotating door on defense this season has been that they, regardless of who they're bringing in, Jeffrey, there's a certain culture and a certain attitude they want everybody to play with. So I could see them trying to find coaches that also align with that, and what better place to find those coaches than internally. Yep. Although it does seem like some of our top internal candidates for promotion, we have, again, Terrell Williams heading to New England to be their defensive coordinator, and then we're not sure exactly what's going to happen with Hank Farley. So, it does seem like some of those potential internal candidates are moving on, but it could be an opportunity to interject some new ideas into the team. I particularly on the defense, Aaron Glenn did a fantastic job, but he definitely had a hard time letting go of that man scheme of his. Like, even when like the injuries started to pile up, he's like, nope, we're sticking to it, man. This is what we do. We're doing it. I don't care what happens. So having somebody who maybe can adapt, it's good to have like a preference, but like when the game dictates it, to your point, Jeffrey, we didn't try changing anything really. We just kept the pedal to the metal there and tried to make it work. And then Mark Lewis also commenting, Washington definitely destroyed us in special teams. Was it just me, Jeffrey, or what did you think about Craig Reynolds returning kicks? I felt like every time it was kicked to him, it was like, I wish he would have just taken a knee. I think he had to return it because it was in that zone.
Yeah.
But it was, there was no danger there for the Commanders.
Yeah, he can bust one, but I don't think he can bust that as far as just the way the blocks are set up and everything like that, right? I agree. I was a little I was wincing. I was like, please just give us some good field position, give us a chance here. Don't back us up back at the 5 or whatever. But
And Mark Lewis also saying here, Bates needing to learn how to kick it to the 1, because that's what they were doing to us. We had to return a lot of kicks in that game, and Craig Reynolds was certainly, like I said, it didn't look great. And they were keeping it away from Khalif Raymond too. So not only were they kicking it to inside the zone where we had to return it, but then also keeping it away from who I would say is the more electric of the two, even with the injury struggles.
I mean, top to bottom, their game plan was awesome in all phases. Yeah. They came in, they took every advantage they could. They were super aggressive like we are. I mean, it was a 4th down fest, right? So
it doesn't feel good when it's on the other side. I have to admit, I wonder how much too that like impacts other teams. Like, you're sort of trained. Hey, we hold them to 3rd down. They're gonna punt. We're gonna get the ball back. We did our job. 3 and out, baby. We've made it. And then they go for it, and then they get it. And you have to go back out there. That is just –
especially when we couldn't stop it. Like, every time they went for a 4th down, I knew they were going to get it. Like, we could not stop anything, which is why I think we were throwing way more kind of those 4th down trick stuff than we probably wanted to, right? Because we were trying to get on that possession game, to get an extra possession on them, because we were just getting destroyed. We couldn't stop anything. But – backfired on us, and it's that 4th down variance. I brought it up in the pregame. 4th down variance could be the key if it gets fluky.
Yeah, I'm not sure how they finished with a 3rd down efficiency of 4 for 12, because they only punted once, and then they were 3 for 4 on 4th down. So if they only punted once and they went for it 4 times, that's 4. There's 4 like unaccounted for drives there of like what happened, because they didn't turn it over. So I'm not exactly sure how the math is mathing there.
Are those the scoring drives they had, or is this all? Or is that total punts?
I wonder if a touchdown on a 3rd down counts as does that count as a conversion, or does that count? I would think that would count as a conversion, right?
So, right? Because you get the 1st down and the touchdown.
Yeah, you would think, but I don't know. These numbers are from Google. It's saying they went 4-12, but it definitely felt like it was deflating, because we'd finally get them and we'd hold them on a 3rd down, and then they would just go and get the 1st down anyways. And it's like, okay.
Yep.
We can't stop you. We finally make a stop. Then you go for it. And the most painful was that flag for the 12th man as we were trying to keep them out of the end zone.
Because we got the first down too. Like, okay, we got some momentum here, and then put us back into yeah, it was just awful. It was awful. Wish it was more competitive, but yeah.
Yeah, it just every time it seemed like we were finally able to like overcome something and start catching up ground, there would just be something else. We'd step in another pothole, there'd just be something to throw us off there. And I don't blame JMO, but it seemed like we got a little lost in the sauce there. Like there was a whole lot of trickery, and a lot of it had gone really well for us in the game. But that was the moment where you could tell Ben Johnson had just gotten too. That was his "I have the high ground" Anakin moment there.
yeah, because you don't want because you don't want your wide receiver. They're not quarterbacks, and you're right. You don't want them to make the play unless it is like that. You're designed to like one person kind of thing. So just overall, did not like that. Tell them to run out of bounds no matter what, or something on that. If you're gonna take a sack, run out of bounds. Do not throw that ball.
Do not throw the triple coverage 500 ball there. Yeah, it was not what we needed. And so, Jared Goff accounted for 4 of the 5 turnovers, and then of course JMO throwing that 5th one there. So it was rough. 5 turnovers for us, 0 for the Commanders. Again, it's just another reason why I think. Yes, there are definitely some criticisms that can be tossed towards the Lions. And I think, whether it be the play calling, both offense and defense, Jared Goff and his play, I think that's well-deserved. But also the Commanders, man, they came out and they won that game. Nothing's given to you in the NFL.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it definitely just goes to show that when you're playing this caliber of opponent, you can't make mistakes like that. It's
right.
just it's
They're not
really
Houston,
hard.
Right? We can't throw 5 picks and win that game.
It just you just can't do it. And I will say on a positive note from the game, Jeffrey, that don't get me wrong, you have been talking about it all season long about having the split between Sonic and Knuckles has helped keep them fresh. But I will say when Jahmyr Gibbs is out there on the field, I feel like he is one of the I feel like he's one of the best players in the NFL, but I feel like he is the best player on the field most of the time when he is out there. That was one thing that was very clear in this game. I mean, we've seen him just get up to speed and score some pretty incredible touchdowns throughout the season, but the fact that he was doing it here in the game against the Commanders and was the bright spot in an otherwise kind of a lackluster performance from the Lions, I think says a lot.
I would have gave the ball to him more, actually. But Monty got those few carries. He didn't look as good, I think, as they probably would have hoped.
Yeah, it didn't seem like. I mean, I know they said he was feeling good and that he was ready to get, but it didn't. He definitely felt like a guy that was coming off injury and was heading out there. He didn't come out there and he wasn't just like a madman like Alex Anzalone was when he was, came back against the Vikings and had that instant impact returning from injury. He definitely felt like, he was definitely feeling the impact of that knee injury.
Yeah.
But I think having the two of them healthy for next season is going to be a fantastic asset because even though I do agree, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is definitely electric, but keeping a good split with him and Montgomery, I think, is the key to making sure he's fresh all season long and into the playoffs.
I think it's just a good long-term decision. I mean, you look at running backs, right? They're already kind of undervalued. They drop off a cliff due to the amount of hits that they take, right? Mm-hmm. Except unless you're an anomaly, right? Unless you're like Derrick Henry or Frank Gore, who just cannot be stopped regardless of age, time, weather, or anything else, right? But typically, right?
Adrian Peterson, even though, he's a terrible person, but hell of a football player, man.
Yeah, right. So I think it's just a good long-term strategy because now he doesn't have those carries on his career, right? He probably is not. He's probably going to be able to play longer amount of time. I mean, time will tell, but ideal. I feel like the more wear and tear you have, right, the less you're going to be able to function the longer you go on in your career.
Yeah, I think it should help increase his longevity, and thankfully here, knock on wood, he hasn't had like a major injury. So hopefully keeping him fresh helps keep him healthy and it helps prevent like a big ACL or MCL tear or anything like that. So
Yeah,
it'd be great to avoid that.
yeah. We all on that team could use off season to heal the bones. 'Cause
Absolutely.
we're hurting.
And part of me is too glad that we're not rushing Aiden Hutchinson back, that he's going to get full time to rehab now. I definitely think if he was able to go for the Super Bowl, he probably would have been out there. And, I think he could have had an impact, but like the worst possible thing would have been he goes out there and injures himself again.
Yeah,
And so I'm kind of glad that at the very least, we don't have to worry about falling into that timeline.
yeah,
So that's that's a good thing.
yeah. Absolutely.
All right, Jeffrey. Well, talked about this game. Of course, it was one of four played in the divisional round this past weekend. Things got kicked off on Saturday with the Texans and Kansas City. And as you mentioned, Jeffrey, Kansas City got the win here. And of course, will be representing the AFC for the third. Is it the third consecutive? Well, they're going for their third consecutive AFC
I think
championship.
this is their seventh straight.
Seventh straight AFC championship
Ridiculous
game or
like
something.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not great. Not,
Yeah, especially because like they're. I mean, I don't want to knock on the power running, not so like flashy team, right? But like they just don't look fun. They're not fun to watch either. They just kind of roll and they get it done, which is just nuts.
Yeah, a 16 for 25, 177 yards, and a touchdown being the stat line for Patrick Mahomes is not super sexy at all.
Yeah.
Although Travis Kelce having 7 receptions for 117 yards and a TD. So
yeah, he came alive in that game because he's starting to look slower out there, but he definitely came to play this game. But I mean, this is when their season starts, right? When you're kind of in that mode that they are and in that much success, like it's almost like the regular season is just like let's just get through it because the dance is here.
Yeah, we'll just try and conserve energy and wait until we make it to the playoffs, and then it's go time, baby. It's time to make it happen. One thing that was clear for the Texans in this game, Jeffrey, is that certainly one area of attention that if it wasn't clear from the regular season that they need to spend some time on, that offensive line. They definitely struggled here against the Chiefs. And, we've talked about it. While the Chiefs offense hasn't been super impactful, their defense has been sort of carrying them at this point. They definitely were able to get home let's see, how many sacks did they have? 8 sacks in this game. So
yeah,
pretty rough there.
Yeah, Houston's line has been just kind of it's been like this all year, and I think that's part of the reason why we saw CJ Stroud have such a massive downturn. I think there are other factors involved for sure, but I mean, if you're if you don't have time to sit back there and throw, I mean, there's not much you can do. If you're fighting for your life every single snap, right? It's not going to be a good time.
Now, who's more to blame, Jeffrey? Is it the offensive line or is it the Stephon Diggs effect?
I think it's the offensive line because even, I mean, right? Even if, I think Diggs would dig him out of holes just with talent, kind of thing. But yeah, I think I would put it way more on the offensive line because if you have time, you've got Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs, man.
Yeah, but Diggs did not play. So I mean, they were due to injury. They were left with really just Nico Collins. They do have Mechie, who did have he had a sighting earlier in the season, but really they've struggled. And my dad agreeing there with us, O-line and receiving core being 2 areas of struggle there for them. But yeah, gonna be interesting to see. Yeah, 16-2, Jeffrey. They just keep finding a way.
They keep doing it. They got the Bills, though, the only team that we have seen with our 2 eyes that can actually beat these people, right? Them and who else are the Chiefs?
Hopefully beat these.
I forgot who they've got 2 losses.
They do. Let's see. Their second one, or they lost to They lost to. Oh, that was preseason. I was about to say the Bears.
I was going to say that. I don't know that.
That was preseason. Oh, they lost to the Broncos the last week of the season.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they were resting their starters. That's why I didn't remember. It was already
it didn't even really count. Yeah, they just waved a white flag. That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So, yeah, so the Bills, the only team we have seen actually take them out.
Yeah, the only team to play the starters and get a victory.
I don't know, though, because they've got referees officiating this game, so maybe this is all but decided right now.
It could be. I know Troy Aikman would be very disappointed.
I am a big fan of Troy Aikman's I don't give a fuck anymore kind of thing. And he just kind of says what he wants on TV. I think it's great. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah. He's not afraid to call a spade, Jeffrey.
Also, I do like how if he's commenting on a game that's got bad quarterback play going on, over the course of the game, you can see him get more and more annoyed, and he's just pointing out stuff. It's to me, it's peak comedy. Peak comedy.
Pretty good. Then Jeffrey, the first of the Sunday games, we had the Rams and the Eagles. The Eagles got the 28-22 victory over Sean McVay, Matt Stafford, and company. But they made it interesting there towards the end, Jeffrey. It seemed like for a while that you couldn't see the numbers on the field, so it became pretty interesting. But it seemed like the Rams were done, but then they kind of made a push there at the end to make it a little bit interesting. But
yeah, I can't not doubt them just because what they're able to do. I mentioned kind of the in-season turnaround, right? They basically rebuilt. They don't go through rebuilds. They just keep on rolling. They work with what they have every year, right? And it obviously got them that Super Bowl hero in the past 5, but I never doubted that they had a chance in this game or any of the games, even if they won this game.
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting if you look at the two teams. Obviously, Snow was a big part of the game. Jake Elliott was 3 for 3 kicking the ball, which was impressive considering they had to go and dig out the field to let him get kicks. But the Eagles, they relied very heavily on the running game. 26 carries, 205 yards, and 2 touchdowns for Saquon. Whereas the Rams, they did have 106 yards on the ground with Kyron Williams, but it was the passing attack, despite the conditions, that led the way. Matthew Stafford throwing for 324 and 2 TDs.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting with how much snow was falling there.
He had a no-look pass, too. Yeah, him and McVay are a spicy combo. I fully expect them to be in the mix next year as well. But yeah, they're definitely cooking. Puka Nacua is an absolute beast. We'll see what happens with Cooper Kupp, but yeah, they're cooking.
Yeah, and I like Tom 852 here on Twitch, saying it's a testament to McVay building a solid program to always be in it. I think not only are they always in it, but you look at all of the winning seasons that Mike Tomlin has had with the Steelers, and so the Steelers are always in the playoffs, but they're constantly getting bounced here in the first round. The Rams are a team where they're making it, and you can't really count them out because you gotta
with
be
the
careful.
Steelers. When they end up in that wild card spot, it's always like, oh yeah, they walked backwards into that, and they are going to get stomped, which they have every time. So in the past few years, at least.
Yeah, the difference is, oh, hey, yeah, we get to play the Steelers. Good. And then, oh, shit, we have to play the Rams.
Yeah. Oh, that defense is solid. Ooh, but they got Kenny Pickett at quarterback, so I think we're all right.
It's interesting. Interesting indeed. And then, Jeffrey, the last game, as you mentioned, our only hope in the AFC left remaining to prevent another Super Bowl appearance for those Chiefs, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Very close game there between Baltimore and the Bills, but ultimately Mark Andrews for the second time. Was it the second time this season? I think it was the second time this season, coming up just that short.
Yeah, that was rough. That was rough because they had the play. He had it in his hands, but you expect a guy like Mark Andrews to make that play. So,
yep,
very rough way to end the contest there. I was almost expecting like a Justin Tucker meltdown, but didn't expect Mark Andrews.
Yeah, he didn't impact his legacy. In fact, they really didn't have him kick too often. He did have a field goal and the one extra point. Other than that, they went for two twice in this game, Jeffrey. And as Tom852 pointing out, he had two big drops in this game. Mm-hmm. I think there was also a little bit of the caster curse going on because they kept talking about Lamar Jackson and the discussion about him struggling in the playoffs. And every time they mentioned it, man, it seemed like something else was going wrong for him.
Yeah. Do you think this is another kind of nail in his legacy as far as just like a negative, like he cannot get past the divisional round kind of thing?
I don't know, because I feel like there is so much, like, there's only, yes, as a QB, I think you do have obviously a lot of impact on the games, but I feel like you almost need the perfect combination of luck and just catching teams at the right time. And, I think it's hard to do, so I don't necessarily. I'm sure there are definitely going to be people who will look at this and say, "Yeah, he's this is just more proof to show that he does have the poor playoff performance and that he is not a guy that can get them to the Super Bowl." But until he actually goes out there and does it, unfortunately, I don't think there's a way for him to really dispel the rumors until you actually get to the Super Bowl. And then if he doesn't win the Super Bowl, it'll still probably hold true. So he's got to get there and he's got to win probably if he wants to silence all the haters out there.
Yeah, which I mean, at that point, they're just haters at that point. I mean, like, yeah, there is very much a championship or bust kind of mentality from many fans, right? Even if your team is good, making the playoffs, right? You get to the Super Bowl, right? With the 49ers, right? Not being able to win it, like. It diminishes all the work you do in the regular season to get there. Like, I mean, the Lions had the best season that they've ever had, but like we are, obviously it's only a few days removed from it, but like, dang, you can't throw out all that just because we have one loss.
Yeah, no, I definitely, there are plenty of fans who are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah. And I get it. Each season is its own window, right? Like you can't necessarily build upon the success that you've had in a given year because things are going to change drastically from year to year, especially in the NFL. And we've even seen it even more so now in college football with the transfer portal and everything like that. So it is very, very difficult. I understand, like, hey, it's either championship or bust mentality in a sense, but at the same time, there's only one team out of 31 that is getting to lift that trophy at the end of the season. Yeah. And so, I think there's success comes in different levels. And obviously the big prize everyone's after is being able to lift the Lombardi trophy. But just because your season doesn't end with that doesn't take away from what you were able to achieve, in my opinion. So, I think this Lions team is still special in the fact that, 15 wins in the season, our first ever back-to-back NFC Championship. I think it definitely is all positive things for this franchise and for this team. Yes, is there a lot of uncertainty moving forward with exactly what's going to happen? Certainly so, but I don't think that takes away from what this team was able to achieve. And it is disappointing that they weren't able to go further. But whether it's the Lions or Lamar Jackson, like, I think he had a MVP caliber season. Regardless of what the ultimate outcome was. He was a big part of the games they did win. And so, if you're a big part of the games that your team wins, you're probably also a big part of the games the team loses as well. So there's probably some blame that can be there as well. But it's kind of it is very interesting how quick. I definitely saw plenty of people posting on Facebook after the loss of just this whole season was useless. It didn't mean anything, and just it's like, oh, okay. I mean, I get it. I was upset too, and doom and gloom, but like.
But yeah, but it did not take away from it doesn't take away from the excitement you had while watching the team go. I mean, like you said, every NFL season's a window, right? And we have storylines, we have good teams, we have teams underperforming, overperforming, right? And it was cool to watch a team like that operate, right? And it happened to be a team we root for. So
yeah, and,
to me, it's not a waste. I mean. Then why do anything, right? If you're not gonna get the perfect outcome.
Yeah, and this is I think one of the better Lions teams we've seen so far, and so because we haven't seen a Super Bowl caliber team, it's kind of hard to think of okay, if this team wasn't a Super Bowl caliber team, like what is going to be one? But that it also depends on what is going on with the other teams too. It's not just you don't exist in just a lab where it's just like you and you're in this void by yourself. Like there's other things that are impacting it. And Jaden Daniels and the Commanders are a buzzsaw, and we ran straight into that bad boy. But Jeffrey, as mentioned earlier, I think adding to that, and we talking about all the changes that happen in the windows. Again, we're seeing. It's both flattering and unnerving the fact that so many coaches from our coaching staff are potentially moving on this off season, and again with it being our first time really having to fill these voids, it's definitely there's the uncertainty, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how it goes. I will say that even if I think. Even if initially the people they put in there, I would certainly love for them to make a great pick to replace Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn here with their first pick. But even if, the people they do ultimately give the nod to, if they do struggle, like if they course correct within a year, I'm still okay with that. Like I don't expect them necessarily to hit a home run with their first at bats after, trying to replace these guys. But I am. It is definitely worrisome, I would say, right? It is a question of, is the window going to be closing for this Lions team, or is this going to be just the next? Like, is this going to be the end of the cinematic universe, or are we just heading into the next phase? Right?
Yeah,
like it's the question for these Lions.
It's a question. Hopefully, we're good again. Hopefully, we can have another run at the Super Bowl, right? Be one of the better teams, be one of the more innovative teams. But, we'll see.
Hopefully we're not doing the Rob Schneider line from Waterboy. Oh, great. We suck again. Hopefully not the case. But, it's going to be interesting to see. And Detroit fan, man, welcome to the show. And, of course, it would be a lot cooler if they did make the right choice. It would be
very cool if they did.
It'd be fantastic if they could not skip a beat in between. And it'd be really cool if we could win 3 NFC North Championships in a row.
Yeah, let's.
Especially with Ben Johnson then being one of the coaches we're winning over there. Although I will say I did appreciate that he mentioned one of the reasons why he did ultimately take the Bears job was because he got kind of used to beating Matt LaFleur twice a season.
Ouch! Dang. Okay.
He gave praise to Kevin O'Connell and Dan Campbell, saying, they're recognizing them as Coach of the Year candidates, but then, said got kind of used to beating Matt LaFleur twice a season. So.
That's hilarious. And now that he's not on our team and a part of a division rival, I hope he sucks. Thanks for all the memories, Ben Johnson.
Yeah, I was going to be rooting for him. I was kind of hoping he would go to the Raiders. And then now that he's in the division, it changes.
Yep.
I'm not going to be outwardly rooting for him anymore. There might be part of me inside that still wants him to do well, but I'm going to suppress that. I'm not going to publicly vocalize that support. Forget that noise. Hate the Bears.
Yeah.
Speaking of hate, Jeffrey, let's move on to our champs and chumps of the week. And let's start with your champ. Who was your champ for the divisional round of the playoffs, Jeffrey?
I have to give it to Jaden Daniels, a rookie coming in, looking unflappable like he was, being super clutch all year, and then coming in and punching the best NFC team in the mouth. right, on the very first drive and not looking back. Absolutely just kind of hand waving away our defensive efforts pretty much. So you got to love how he played, how he came in and on the road doing this. And it's a special season for him and hopefully for the Commanders here.
I like that pick. I'm going to go with one of the people that he will be seeing in the NFC Championship game. I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley. He almost set the rushing record, regular season rushing record. They did hold him out, so he didn't set the record, Jeffrey. But with the weather, he was called upon to help lead that team to victory, and him and his offensive line did not disappoint. Matt Stafford tried to power up to Super Saiyan to knock him out.
Yep.
And they just could not stop Saquon. 205 yards, 2 TDs, just scary numbers on the ground, Jeffrey.
And another game where the Eagles' passing game was not having to be tested. So we'll see. We'll see what happens next week.
If Jaden Daniels and the Commanders can score points quickly and force them to have to throw the football, that could be the way to keep Saquon's numbers down.
Yeah, if you got to start throwing, right? AJ Brown has to put that book down and start playing, right? It could be spicy.
Could be very spicy. And then Jeffrey, time for our chump picks, and I think we're both kind of in the same area, but it could be slightly different items we're teeing off on here. I'll start with mine. So I'm going with NFL officiating, but specifically, I'm going to be targeting the fact that you cannot use the replay assist to either enforce or wave off flags. And there were 2 great examples in the Washington Lions game. The first one was on that hit on Jared Goff when he did throw the pick 6. He was a defenseless player, got hit in the head, should have been a penalty. That touchdown shouldn't have stood. And then also one that did benefit the Lions was the face mask that was called. I think they called it against David Montgomery, but they only got a shoulder. But if you can clearly see either something is a penalty and I don't think they necessarily should enforce it with everything. I think that could be a slippery slope, because you can call holding on every play on the offensive line and things like that. So I'm not saying we get down to that minutia, but clearly on a return where you have a quarterback that's getting, smashed in the head and has to go through the concussion protocol before they can come back into the game. You should be able to have somebody from New York raise their hand and say, hey guys, we should toss a flag out there. That's no bueno. Or when they clearly messed up a call and call a face mask when there wasn't one, that should also be able to be reversed with the help of the New York and that sort of the replay booth doing one of those assisted calls. So that's my big complaint with the NFL. We've already introduced this world. We've opened Pandora's box. I don't want to see them go full ham, but I definitely think there should be the ability to either wave off flags or add them in situations where it's just blatant and it's just missed.
Yeah, I agree with you. We have the technology. My chump is, I said NFL referees, but I think it's just officiating in general here, right? Because even just to kind of go further on your point here, right? That's not being called, but yet when someone breathes on Patrick Mahomes, they're throwing flags like it's no other. There's just no consistency across anything. In fact, there's a positive bias being shown towards the Chiefs, which is not great look, I don't think, right? Because the product needs to be good, but you can't be giving a team all the juice, right? That's just this is not good. That's not good ethics. So I think I think we should be able to use the technology to write calls that are called wrong and blatantly wrong. And what also drives me crazy is that they can't use some of the replay angles that they have because not all stadiums have the cameras set up for those angles. And I think that's absolute bullshit because you are a multi-billion-dollar company and you can't go in and install cameras in those areas. I don't even care if it's not built. You have so much money and you try to squeeze so much money out of the fans and all this stuff, and then yet to make your own product better, you don't go about it.
Yeah, give somebody a Super Bowl commercial that makes the cameras you need, and just say, hey, we'll give you the commercial space. You give us the cameras for the stadiums. We call it good, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Just barter it. Come on now.
Right. And it doesn't make sense. I just all year it's been like that. Many years it's been like that, right? And it's to the point where like for the Jared Goff being hit and not getting called, to me, I'm most of these games I'm going in. We have to play good enough to where the uncertainty and how the refs are going to even call things shouldn't be the deciding factor. Like we have to play so well that we're even above that. None of that bullshit affects us. Right? Any team, really, right? Because it happens in almost every game. It happens in big games, happens in national games, and it just doesn't look good.
Yeah, it is hard to believe that they haven't like brought in the referees and made them part of like the NFL organization and like standardized their training and It just seems like a no-brainer when you have these individuals who are out there and definitely a lot of them do make good calls, and even good referees, they can make a bad call here or there. It's just human error. But like the fact that the NFL isn't doing more to support them or take advantage of the technology that they already have available, to your point, is it just doesn't make any sense. Like
you got me going now. I also when they have, how they have like a rules expert or rules person on a broadcast that can call in, talk about it. The vast majority of the time, they just kind of just go ride the meat of whatever the referees made the call. They don't even send them out there to actually judge. They make them sit out there to make them think that make us think that the call is good when it's clearly not. So it's ridiculous.
Those snake oil salesmen trying to sell you on some goods that you just don't want any part of.
Yeah.
Don't. I know this is bad call. Don't try and gaslight me into thinking this is good, man.
Right. I mean, you're not doing. You make yourself look like a fool, but
you can't doubt the almighty NFL, man. You can't. Roger Goodell knows best.
They're about to own almost every day of the week, man. That's a whole thing.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. And that'll be an interesting thing too. I know expansion of the season is something that's on the table here in upcoming years, so it'll be interesting to see too how that impacts the Lions' ability and the Lions' windows here moving forward. Yes, all the teams will be playing those extra games, but maybe it's because we're particularly sensitive to it, given the amount of injuries we sustained this particular year, Jeffrey. But it is it's not easy keeping a squad together across an NFL season. So adding more games is only going to make it more difficult.
And it's not even like the NBA. Like every game matters in the NFL realistically, even when we had 16 games, right? Like especially at the end of the season when playoffs go, right? We don't have a sport where we have 100 games like hockey or baseball, or like 82 with the NBA, right? Like every game matters here, and they kind of tout player safety, like, oh, we're all about player safety and do all this stuff, but then they're like, all right, let's make a team play 3 times in the span of 12 days. Okay, like that goes against your messaging. But then again, I mean, most of the positive messaging from the NFL is BS anyway. So
everyone believes exactly what they say until they want to change it, and it's the hypocrisy, Jeffrey. It is everyone's favorite flavor.
Yes.
But what are your thoughts here, Jeffrey, as we get ready to wind down the episode here? Obviously it was a big thing for the Lions to get the win over the Vikings. It helped them secure, the number 1 seed, the bye week, which gave them a week to get healthy. And it was also important for winning the division. But do you think the Lions may have been better served if they had been the wild card team and hadn't had the bye week and had to stick to the regular routine more so than they did with having the bye? Do you think they're in a different timeline? Do you think maybe that would have been better for this team, keeping things going instead of having a week off?
I think so, because it puts us in that kind of parallel universe kind of thing where, right, we are not we're not the home field advantage, right? We're going in and hoping to punch someone in the mouth kind of thing, rather than we're
the underdog, the scrappy nobodies who are coming in instead of being the favorite.
I mean, based off of how well we played, like we've gone from the hunter to the hunted. Really, Dan Campbell's talked about this, right? It's much harder to be the guy and you like come in to defend it rather than be the hungry up and comer kind of thing. So
yeah, and I think too that probably impacted Jared Goff and his his decisions to try and you could definitely tell he was concerned in trying to make plays there. I think being like, okay, knowing what big spot this was for the team and what it meant for the city and everything like that, and being at home, definitely could have helped contribute. Obviously, I can't put myself exactly in his headspace, but certainly it would impact me if thinking, okay, I can't F this up for everybody. This is what we wanted. We're the number 1 seed, man. We can't come out here and do this, and then shit.
Yeah.
So it's rough. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out. If fans are chanting Jared Goff early in the season, or exactly what sort of reception he will receive in his first action next season. But Jeffrey, I mean, we're in that kind of familiar position for us now here as Lions fans, where we're just sort of looking forward to the off season and seeing how things unfold.
Yeah. And we don't get as worse of a draft pick, right? Because if we would have won, we would have picked 32. Now we're picking in the 20s. So, hey, we might get a late round pickup that might be
pick 28, I believe, is where we are picking. And I've definitely seen a lot of different mock drafts already. I've seen us taking a safety. I've seen us taking edge guys. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what the
bodies. We just need to have the draft to rebuild the coffers here.
Yeah, I believe. Yeah. We it was a rough season and definitely took its toll on us quite a bit.
We brought in the corpse of Jamal Adams. He took a snap for us. That should not have happened.
Yeah, he was not only just like brought in but on the field in a game playing. Yeah. It's rough. It's rough. We were kicking tires anywhere we could, and
seriously,
hopefully next season we have a little better injury luck. I mean, I'm sure every season's gonna have injuries, but it's gonna be interesting.
Oh yeah, we Detroit fan man's right. We get some comp picks for Glenn leaving, I think. And do we get one for Johnson leaving as well? I know we get some compensatory something because of our coordinators leaving.
Yeah. So. 101 for Aaron Glenn is a final gift, and plus a third rounder next year as well.
Oh, nice. Third rounders. I feel like third rounders are fairly valuable because I see a lot of trades where we're like, what, just a third rounder for Devontae? But those third rounders, man, they can get you.
You can definitely hit on them there. I feel like that's a third round. I definitely like it for like receivers too. I feel like you can find some good receivers to add, especially if you're looking to add depth to that. Your wide receiver core can be a great spot. And then of course, anytime you're picking anybody in the trenches, also can be a good use of that. So, and then as you're right too, is draft cap or as trade capital, they can be can help you maybe acquire some of those final pieces. And so before we call this episode quits, Jeffrey, do you think the Lions are going to be more so in that position where they're going to try and make a few choice acquisitions this offseason, or do you think they're going to stick to the formula that they've had and focus to try and leverage the draft to help add to this roster?
I don't think anything's off the table. We definitely, right, we active at the trade deadline, got ourselves Big Z, Zadarius Smith, right? I think that was a great pickup. He carried us, especially when we had such a bad luck on the line, especially.
I am excited to see what him and Hutchinson look like on the same line.
Yeah, him and with Reader healthy also. Any of those guys back, really.
And McNeil.
Yeah. Like, man. But yeah, I could see us going for some key acquisitions. I mean, people want to play for us now, so it's not like having to have pay a premium to come to Detroit kind of thing. Like, we're in the mix. We have that good culture. People actually want to play. So I wouldn't be surprised if we had some key acquisitions here that is outside of the draft.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. Detroit fan man here. Thought the rumored choice acquisition smelled like it was Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons. I think he'd be interesting. I think it'd be interesting to see if he would be a fit, because I know in the past there have been many defensive coordinators, at least defensive personnel, who he has an interesting kind of relationship with them as far as like he's allowed to do quite a bit. He's allowed to freelance quite a bit. And it seems like if he doesn't have that option, he's not happy about it, kind of thing. So that to me is a red flag as far as just culture fit, but talent wise, hell yeah. Let's get him on here.
Yeah, definitely let Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes talk to him, and I'll certainly trust their judgment. If they feel he fits the vibe, then I'm all in. But yeah, certainly. I know. I wonder if it's true that he's just a Cowboys player, and that he's like at the times been like on the fringes with the Cowboys. If that's why some of those rumors circulate, but
that'd be true. Most
Jerry Jones is calling people up, dropping stories.
That's a crazy man.
I saw him eating a donut at football practice this morning. Okay, Jerry. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Oh, well, want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. I know it's a Wednesday episode, not usually our time, but especially with the end of the season, just being a little bit more flexible here. We will have a few more episodes this season. We'll try and keep up with the remainder of the playoff action. Although certainly disappointing that it doesn't involve the Lions, but hey, as fans of the Lions in the NFL, we'll keep it going, and then we'll probably take a look forward towards the off season, Jeffrey, and then we'll call her done, man. We'll call her done.
Yeah, great season with you. First season I was on here for the full time, so it's been fun.
Absolutely, and want to thank everybody who has tuned in throughout the season. Whether you've been catching the replays or you're here live, definitely appreciate all the support. We have quite a few people who are active in chat. So definitely appreciate you guys contribute, not only watching the show, but also contributing. And yeah, we will catch it during the next episode. And unfortunately, Jeffrey, the Go Lions doesn't apply really anymore because it's you can still do it, but they're not playing. So,
Yeah. So go us, I guess.
Go us indeed. All right. Everyone have a good night. Stay warm out there. And we'll see you later. Bye-bye.